So that being said, I would like to call this meeting to order of Kane County's American Rescue Plan Committee for November 10th, 2021. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Bates.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Frost. Gums.
Gums here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Leonard.
Leonard here.
Martin.
I'm present.
Molina.
Molina present.
Strothman.
Strathman here.
Teppy.
Teppy here.
And Sanchez.
Here. Can someone please ask for unanimous consent to approve the minutes of October 20th, 2021?
Consent, Kenyon.
Kenyon asked for unanimous consent. Anyone opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Public comments, I can't see the audience. So if there is anyone in the audience that would like to deliver a comment to this committee at this time, please step up to the podium and identify yourself.
There is nobody coming up.
There's one person.
Nobody?
Oh, sorry.
One person.
She is on her way.
Okay.
I apologize for my tardiness. I was trying to get an associate directions how to come in. I am Eileen McNamee. I am with PADS of Elgin, and I'm here to talk briefly about how important all of the social service agencies are to Kane County. You started the IRIS system, which through the Kane County Health Department for the integrated referral and intake system. That's something that we use all the time, and it was started to build upon the strong collaborative relationships that you partner with so that community members would be more effectively connected with the services to support a positive outcome. Increased IRIS collaboration among all of our community agencies is helping all the individuals and families within Kane County. So it's so vitally important that you understand that this system put together by the Kane County Health Department still needs to be supported by this board through the ARPA committee. We believe in our partnerships with other social service agencies. We believe in the partnerships with our governmental agencies, especially the Kane County government, which governs most of our service area. We rely on mutual trust and support. And right now, we all really need your financial support. At PADS, our numbers are up and we have another large family seeking shelter. We regularly receive phone calls from people outside of our service agency who cannot gain access to their local shelters because they're all at capacity. It's heartbreaking knowing you cannot help someone from the outside because they're not in your service agency. I'm not asking that we change our parameters. It just scares me to think about the residents of Kane County. Homelessness happens. Everyone is only a couple of paychecks away from homelessness. We need to be able to provide for the Kane County community who have been residents and citizens in Kane County, who have paid their taxes, and homelessness happens. The increase in families seeking shelter is at an alarming rate and it continues to grow. Most shelters are at capacity, even within our own county, and PAD has a little room. But if we have another rise in COVID cases in the IDPH or the Kane County Health Department shrinks our capacity to serve people because we need more space to protect our guests inside, we won't have that space for others. We need to provide for the people of Kane County, and I'm really encouraging this board, this whole committee, that you're going to take care of the residents of Kane County the way that we are. And thank you so much for your time and for your support in this matter.
Thank you, Ms. McNamee. Anyone else that would like to deliver a public comment at this time? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Let us move on to chairman's comments. When I put the agenda together last week, I was a bit foggy and I have no recollection of what comments I wanted to deliver at this point. So I'll move on from then. From that discussion item, committee member allocation ideas. I wanted to put this on there. It's something we've been talking about. I don't know if any members of this committee at this time would like to discuss this concept as far as putting numbers into buckets. So if anyone wants to add to this conversation at this time, I'll call upon you.
Mr. Chairman, Bates?
Ms. Bates?
Kenyon after Bates.
Okay.
I feel that until we have all of the requests in and analyzed from our internal requests, and we've opened up our portal to our external partners and agencies and gotten their requests and see what the total picture is going to look like, that it's too early to put to cut up the pie. I think we've been using the pie analogy. So I feel like I'd like to look at the requests first and then start looking at how we want to divvy it up. And I found a very interesting paper last night, called the 2018 King County Health Department Needs Assessment. And that had a list of maybe 20 or 30 or 40 nonprofits that participated in that needs assessment. And I think that would be a good place to start with our portal, the people to notify for our portal. So that's what I'm thinking. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ms. Bates.
I agree with
Thanks.
Mavis.
Mr. Martin agrees with Mavis. Mr. Kenyon, you had a comment?
Something, when we had these meetings, it's Kenyon. We can't hire people with experience. You can put a sign out that says people for hire, but you have to have trained people. And I think we can work with the community college to get training for the health department, for maybe any of the other people that need training. And there's going to be a conference call this morning with some people at this, at the Elgin Community College with Michael Isaacson and the chairman, just to give them ideas what the health department needs for basic to get people. I would say I got my vaccination over here at the big thing. It's absolutely amazing how many people it takes to run that and how smoothly they run that vaccine clinic. I think that's an old Walmart. But I think we have to plan for the future. And there's people at home that if they could afford to attend school and get another one is health department and the childcare. It's a big deal to get, and I know in the schools, you have to be trained to be a teacher's assistant. And they're desperate for all these people. And I think training is a part of it. We could provide the funds and somebody else could do the work.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. Anyone else that wants to add to this discussion item at this time?
Raz has a comment.
Teppy here.
Mr. Frost, go ahead, and then Teppy.
Yeah, Fraz and Teppy. No, just in general, I agree with waiting briefly to get through the steps that we're working on right now. But yeah, at some point, and I don't know if this would be Mr. Chairman Sanchez or some of the consultants we're bringing on, but yeah, we do need to have a short list of, as you said, the buckets that we can allocate, and then we have to set rough percentages on what we want to put in each bucket. Secondly, I think based on comments that we heard yesterday at the county board meeting, public comment section, there seems to be a thought among the public that we're just given this money to do whatever we feel like and pay bills and things like that. So it's important that the public knows that there's very defined uses for this money, and they all have to be documented and backed up. And we can't just use it to balance the budget. We can certainly help in certain areas, but it's not just to use as we see fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Mr. Teppy.
Thank you. I believe that we need to look at each request as it comes through and look at on a more direct basis how quickly the funds are needed. The $4 million that we're allocating, and hopefully we're going to be allocating that very shortly to the food pantries and the mental health organizations and the um,
Shelters,
and the homeless.
mental
shelters,
health.
those monies need to be allocated immediately. In fact, I think we're late in allocating them. And I'd like to think that we'd be open to immediate requests or requests that are much more urgent than trying to delay and wait until we have them all in. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teppy. Anyone else that would like to deliver a comment on this topic? Okay, I don't know if you guys can see me, but I was nodding my head quite a bit as you were all talking. I think some really good ideas. Moving on, we'll talk about the mission statement. I'm still waiting on all of the mission statements to come in. I've got a few, just got one this morning. So last call, get it to me by Friday, maybe Saturday, and then I'll try and compile it into one, as you asked me to do, and bounce it back to everyone. So again, last call for mission statements. Ms. Bates, I believe you had told me you wanted to read yours. I'll allow that if that's still your will. And anyone else that would like to deliver their mission statements publicly.
I'd be happy to. The mission of the Kane County American Rescue Plan Committee would be to restore and empower the people of Kane County to overcome the hardships of the pandemic and create community resilience for a secure and bright future.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Bates.
Fraz has a comment.
Mr. Frost.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as you put as you compile the different mission statements into one, I really like Mr. Brown's comment about it should be included in there somewhere that, that we'll follow, as directed by the guidelines of the program of the American Rescue Plan. I think that was a great idea.
Well noted. Anyone else that would like to contribute to the mission statement conversation at this time before we move on? Okay, there's a couple things that just didn't make it on here. It's just quick discussion points. The holiday weeks, November and December leading up to Thanksgiving and Christmas. We have meetings that would, in our 2-week cycle, fall pretty closely to those holidays. So for November 24th and December 22nd, both Wednesdays, I wanted to see if this committee is interested in holding meetings those days. If people will be available, I know we can Zoom in, so that does help things. Sometimes people are in the middle of the air and can't Zoom in. So is there anyone I should start with that would oppose having our next meeting on November 24th?
Yes, sir. I oppose.
Uh,
Bates here.
Okay. Is there anyone else?
No, I'll be at that's when we're having our Thanksgiving dinner that day with our family.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, this is Leonard.
Mr. Leonard.
What is the urgency of the 24th meeting, or what will be on the agenda?
We simply are on a 2-week cycle. And as far as I know at this time, we don't have anything of the urgency that will need to go to the next county board. So if we don't want to come back to discuss anything else on the 24th, we don't need to.
What this is Fraz speaking, what if we were to combine those two meetings to a date somewhere in between there that would be a little more convenient for everybody? If it sounds like you have a light agenda or anticipating a light agenda, what if we did something, early December?
Well, we already have, let's see, I believe December 8th is a meeting day. So, if, again, there's no sense of urgency right now. We're voting on the $4 million program today. The consultant firm resolution went through county board yesterday. So those were the real big pieces. Everyone's working on the departmental requests. That would essentially be something we could discuss on the 24th. Otherwise, if we don't have a meeting that day or that week, we can certainly wait until December 8th.
Could we wait,
Mr.
just
Chairman.
leave them in place, and then the chairman could keep us informed of the workloads or things that might come up, and if there isn't anything, we could just postpone that.
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit, Drew. Did you say just hold the meeting on the 24th? And
What if we just left them intact, and then we always have the option of canceling a meeting? But,
Yeah.
I think Mr. Leonard has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fraz. I know that we're supposed to be getting back with our reports on the different departments we're talking to. And I don't know if everyone will have that done by the 24th. But, I think that's probably going to be one of the bigger considerations for that meeting. And I'm fine with whatever you want to do, but if people can't make it and there isn't that much on the agenda, then I would suggest that maybe we cancel that meeting and wait till December 8th. But it's the pleasure of the committee, whatever they want to do.
Mr. Martin, did I hear your voice?
Yeah, you did. Uh, Just so that we put the matter to rest, because we bounced around on committee dates here a lot. Why don't we just cancel the 24th meeting? We've got one coming up on the 8th, keep the 22nd. And so let's just, and Bill just made a good point. We have individually some stuff to get done before we have a productive meeting discussing anything anyway. So why don't we, my suggestion would be that we cancel the 24th. Or else go to Mavis's house for dinner, right?
Well, it depends on the quality of the mashed potatoes. So, yeah, so I haven't even posted the November 24th, so we wouldn't even need to cancel it. Is there anyone who would be opposed to waiting until December 8th to discuss the departmental requests? Okay, well, I think that's what we'll do then. We'll hold off that conversation until December 8th, gives everybody ample time to go through the process and be thorough and come back with some pretty strong recommendations. So December 22nd, is there no opposition to the meeting date then?
No, that's okay.
Okay. That's settled then.
I have a question, Kenyon.
Mr. Kenyon, go ahead.
Following on Mr. Teppy's idea, we have money set aside for some of the social agencies. Why can't we pass some of that out?
We're going to do it today.
I mean, why do we have to, they have to wait? We've set $5 million.
You mean for the $4 million program, Mr. Kenyon?
I have $4 million, but we have, people need to eat and they need to have a place to sleep. They can't go on promises.
Right,
I think we should move that up while we're considering our internal needs.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Bates.
I totally agree.
Well, if you guys are referring to the $4 million program resolution we have today, that is going to ideally be approved today and then move to the county board, the next county board. And once that gets the final county board approval, then we can, assuming the portal is ready, which I'm told it will be, we can open it up and then start the application window for these agencies. So we can't just start handing money out, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to.
When does the portal open up, please?
Well, we don't have a specific date yet. We're just starting to, get the Ernst & Young on board. So it's gonna be a little process, and in the next week or so, we'll start firming up on some dates of when we'll be able to have things finished. If all goes well, the way it seems to be with the software, the portal will be ready by the time we get the county board approval on this program, which means then we can open it up.
Is the 30th of this month.
Not the special one, the normally stated one.
That's a county board meeting. We know the chairman, we could get it on her agenda.
All right, well, if you guys have an in, then maybe we can work something out.
She knows the problems that are happening.
Mr. Chair, if I can just
Miss
comment.
Molina and then Miss Gums.
Yeah, I guess if we're looking at our timeline, everybody, I would be, I guess, cautious, because if we have to, after we meet, we still have to go through executive. That means that no action from our committee is going to take place until January. So I would prefer to either keep the meeting on the 24th or maybe do December 1st, because I would hate for no action to come out of the ARP committee until the January meeting. So that would be my only thought on this process.
Okay. Well, I do think some people will need a little more time. And I definitely understand your concern in the timeline, because everything does have to go to executive and then the full county board. But with the holidays, I don't know that we'll be able to really squeeze that in there and do a proper job. I know some of you are fully engaged in the vetting process, or not the vetting process, but the screening process for these requests. So if there's any other discussion on that, come to me outside of the committee. If we decide we really do need a meeting on the 24th, we can still make that happen.
The
Mr.
nature of our
Chairman,
people don't take a holiday. They
Yeah,
gotta
and that
eat.
was,
Bates here.
and sorry, if I could just finish my train of thought. I know I have the contact tracing contract ends the end of December, so there's some action that we will have to take. But I guess we can talk about that outside of this meeting.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Bates, please.
Ms. Gums was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to parrot the idea of getting this on the November 30th for the $4 million plan. Sorry about that. I think that homelessness doesn't wait for holidays. Food doesn't wait for holidays. So super important.
Mr. Chair, Bates, please.
Ms. Bates.
Actually, if we do it early in the day, I could probably be here. If I'm the problem child, I could do the 24th, like at 10:30. The turkey will wait till 3 o'clock.
It would certainly be a morning meeting.
Why would you assume, Mavis, that you'd ever be a problem?
All right, anyone else with a comment?
So if people really do want to have that 24th meeting, I rescind my rescinding.
Okay, well, I can follow up with you guys and just see where everyone's at in your departmental request reviews. And if everyone feels comfortable with the 24th meeting, then we'll set it up. Otherwise, we'll forego it and wait until December 8th for that conversation.
May I have one last
Mr.
question
Martin.
on meetings?
Mhm.
And perhaps I'm the one that's negligent. I know we talked about an every other week rhythm. Have we actually set the specific dates? Did we get an email that said what our dates are going to be for the next 6 months? Did I?
Not for next year. Not yet.
Okay.
We like surprise.
Helps because, we all plan around future things. If we could get a mailing that says, here's what our dates are going to be the next.
I believe.
Yeah, and I just spoke with Jane up in the board office the other day. So she's going to be putting the every 2-week schedule on the calendar because it's always easier to remove it. So we'll have
If we
that
could
set
just
out.
get an email, if we could just get an email that says, here's what they are, because it's good to know in advance.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thanks.
Okay, one more thing for discussion before we move on to the resolutions. The spiral bound documents, I believe Peter has handed out to everyone. Does everyone have one?
No,
No.
we don't have them yet.
Oh, I thought,
Peter hasn't done his
okay.
job.
Peter hasn't, you're not here to.
Now he's gonna hand them out. Sorry. I'm not there, so it's hard for me to.
Peter, I'll take that.
So what these are, I'll come to the microphone.
I'll have Peter wait until you have the microphone.
Thank you.
I already got mine, right? Oh. Yep. I already got, no, Jenny, I already got mine.
No, this is the new one. This is the replacement.
This is good. This is bathroom reading.
Is there a test?
Yes.
Do not. Thank you.
Multiple choice. Multiple choice for farmers.
So what you have is a booklet that we made. We took the compliance documents that are a sublink within the IFR on the electronic document. We took the FAQs and we bound them. You'll find that in the second page, there's a loose page that I created with some yes and no questions that Mr. Brown and Ms. Molina used last week in their departmental meetings. And I think it's pretty useful. Those questions, the yes, no questions are pulled straight from the Treasury documents. And I cited specific pages within those documents that you can find that information directly. And
now we're working on a similar book that we're all utilizing. This is an example of the documents that will be in our repository that we are going to have that is being designed right now. Roger and I have talked about, Roger Fonstock and I have talked about that is really a dependency on Ernst & Young, that contract. There are interdependencies of next steps that are going to take place. And once we have the kickoff meeting with Ernst & Young, which will follow Madam Chair signing the document that Vince has distributed, we will have some key dates at our next meeting that will be discussed, and we'll have some status, and you'll see that some of these moving parts are going to start interacting with each other, and we're going to have the progress in the submittable portal that's been asked about is developed and ready to go. And we're waiting for Ernst & Young to assist us within the next few days to finalize the language that will be on the portal. And we anticipate that that can be completed before Thanksgiving. But it's dependent upon the kickoff meeting, which we anticipate within the next few business days. So.
Thank you, Peter. Is there any questions for Mr. Phillips? Okay, so there's your homework or bathroom reading material, as Mr. Kenyon said.
Bates, please.
Ms. Bates.
So this sheet would be a checklist of how good the request is, how qualified it is.
Well, yes, per the criteria set forth by the Treasury Department. So
Okay.
there's nothing subjective about those questions. Those are pulled directly from the vetting and criteria elements within those documents that you have there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the spiral bound documents? Okay, let us move on to the resolutions. If I could get a motion and a second to discuss and potentially pass establishing parameters for the Community Support Grant Program.
Bates moves.
Gums will
Bates
second.
moves, Gums seconds. All right, so you've had the fleshed out details that came from our last meeting where we went into some detail at some length on what we wanted our criteria and parameters for this program to be. Is there any questions, comments at this point?
Mr. Chair, Teppy here.
Mr. Teppy?
I was trying to find the exact place in here, but I believe it's on page.
Mike, please.
We'll try it again. I believe it's on page 5 or 4 of this document. You talk about all 6 eligible organizations that have agreed. I think it'd be appropriate to list those organizations so that we know who they are.
Yes, good point. That will be included. I consider that a scrivener's error.
Well, no, I understand. This is.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't bring my computer with me and I don't have a hard copy of these.
I'm not sure who the 6 are.
There's mention made about, oh, thank you. Here it comes.
If anyone needs them.
Okay. In the mention,
Jenny?
Oh, okay.
there's mention made in here about the size of the grants for different activity.
Mhm.
Page 5.
And, okay, page 5. And I also see it on page 4. We talk about the maximum, but I don't see any place in here where we address the issue of a minimum. And we were pretty clearly advised by Ernst & Young that we needed to be very cautious about establishing a high enough threshold for applications that in fact it would be economic to give the money. If we say, if it costs us $1,500 to distribute 5,000, we haven't done a very good job. So I think we, and I don't know what that number is, but it seems to me that we need both the top, that the bottom is almost as important as the top.
Vince Coyle, I believe, is there. Can you speak to that? I wasn't advised on any amount that would be crucial for a minimum? I know it has been discussed, but it didn't come up in our conversation last, and I haven't had any information on that since. So Vince, if you could speak to that, please.
Sure. So as it relates to the minimum, I guess that would be a policy decision. I mean, you can have a minimum and or you don't have to. I think the discussion that happened before that Mr. Martin is alluding to is that if you give a large amount of small amount of grants, the reporting aspect of that is going to be, and the cost of the consultant to go over and do all that is going to be very high. So the idea would be to have a larger amount, some in fewer grants that are distributed.
Well, I mean, I understood it differently. What I understood was that what you say is correct, but in fact, there's an item by item. I don't know what the proper term is. There's an item by item review required. And I remember specifically it being said that, that's the baseline is a constant number. Okay. And so in some ways it will cost as much to do that initial review of $100,000 grant as it would a $10,000 grant. And what I don't want to do is to participate in giving, pick a number out of the blue, $4,000 grants and have it cost $1,500 out of each grant. We haven't gotten the money out to anybody. All we've done is pay a consultant. So if I would like to know, I would like to have Ernst & Young's recommendation as to what the smallest workable grant is so that we get the most money out to the benefit of the most people.
And that's understandable. I mean, you can certainly get that from Ernst & Young. I'm sure they would be willing
Well, I
to
mean, that should be part of this, in my mind, that should be part of this resolution because we're establishing a parameter and all we've said is up to. So I would want to know that we were acting upon advice of our consultants and establishing the parameters and they in conversation, I'm repeating myself, made it absolutely clear that there is some minimum at which the gifts no longer make sense, the grants no longer make sense. I want to know what that is and put it in here so that we're not creating illusory assistance.
Yes.
And Mr. Martin, I think that's a good point. If we could get that information from Ernst & Young and create an amendment to this resolution as it moves up from exec to the county board, would there be anyone on this committee opposed to such action?
So Ernst & Young, Bates here, Ernst & Young would be advising us and then we would decide. I agree with Mr. Martin that we want to keep the overhead. That's kind of an overhead cost of vetting and processing all of these requests at the same time. So it's better to have them big, but at the same time, I think that my druthers would be that we keep open for some small ones. So not too big. I'm thinking something like maybe 25%. So if the largest is 100,000, the lowest could be 25,000. The largest is 300,000, the lowest could be 75,000.
Mavis.
Yeah, well, I'm not as comfortable setting that limit amongst us because I just don't think we have the technical knowledge, but Ernst & Young certainly does. So we can get that
Okay, yeah,
answer from
no,
them.
we would wait for Ernst & Young.
And then
but-
it would
If I
just
could-
be
if I
an
could-
amendment.
If
Mr.
I could
Martin.
kind of join in Mavis's conversation, I have no interest in setting it too high. I just want to make darn sure that we're giving away money and not paying consultant fees on a per dollar basis.
Good, all good.
Mr. Chairman Leonard with the
Mr.
comment.
Leonard.
Yes, I'd like to know who's going to find out from Ernst & Young. Will it be Vince or will it be Peter to find out what they recommend as a minimum?
If the committee wants me to reach out to them, I have no problem with that. It doesn't.
That'd be
have to-
great. I just
yeah.
want to know one of you two is going to take charge on that and get an answer to us.
Oh,
'cause
absolutely.
The more
Yes.
quickly we get an answer, the more quickly we can get this resolution moved on. And to Mr. Martin's point, you want a $5,000 grant to someone. If the administrative fee is $1,500, that's a 30% administrative cost. So I think we do have to have Ernst & Young look at that and tell us what's the minimum amount we should use? And that's what we're paying them to do, to give us their expertise. So I agree. And if one of you two would do that, it'd be perfect.
That wouldn't be a problem. Just something to keep in mind as you were discussing the dates for the next meeting. If this resolution is put off to get that information till the next meeting, the December 8th, I believe, would miss the executive and then the next county board.
Yeah,
So-
and so Vince, my suggestion is we still move this forward, knowing this amendment will come from Ernst & Young that can be included ideally by executive committee,
Well, but
unless there's an
I
objection
don't-
to that.
Well, I object and I hope a constructive sense. It's this committee's task to evaluate this and make a recommendation to the executive committee, and to walk into the executive committee and expect people who have no involvement with this, which is quite a bit of the executive committee, to make a decision that reflects upon the conversations we have, I think is maybe not a valid presumption. I'm hesitant to just move it forward and say, let's just amend it. We need, our job is to sit and make an informed decision as to what we recommend to the executive committee. And they ought to be comfortable that when they get it, that we've talked about it. This isn't like correcting a typographical error or, doing something like that. I mean, this is the substance of our deliberation here. And I agree. I don't want to lose the rhythm. I don't want to lose meeting dates. Lord only knows I don't want a special meeting, but maybe we need a special meeting. I'm just saying, this is our job. And I think we need to do it. And if that takes another meeting, then, that's why we make the big bucks.
Mr. Martin,
Mr.
so
Chair.
how I'm understanding this is we're waiting for the recommendation from Ernst & Young with all of their technical expertise to give us what the minimum should be. Are you suggesting that we might decide otherwise than what they recommend to us?
Yeah.
We could.
We might.
We're
we
setting
might.
policy.
Yeah, I mean, we might, and it's good, and they're going to tell us, they're going to give us some expense that's related to the audit. And then we need to look at it and say, well, we don't want to, we keep using $1,500. That may be totally irrelevant to the conversation, but I just think we need to take our advice and independently have a discussion and do our job, which is to determine what the policy is that we want to meet. If they say the minimum might be 10,000, we might look at it and say, well, if we lose $1,500 out of 10,000, that's too much money lost. Let's set it at 25 and move on. I just,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Teppy, I heard you first.
Okay, I'll move an amendment to this that under the categories of behavioral and mental health, homeless shelters, behavior and mental health 2, homeless shelters and food pantries, that we establish a minimum request of $20,000.
Brad seconds.
Okay, we have an amendment. A minimum threshold of $20,000. Any discussion on this? Mr. Kenyon?
Comment. I had that sinking feeling that every time we mention the consultant, it costs money. I mean, we can sign a check and mail it to the Auburn Food Bank or Big Rock. I don't think we need them to do simple things like that. Those people have to eat. And if we want to use Northern Illinois Food Bank, it's fine. But we don't need to ding around and ask some consultant what he thinks, because he eats every day.
how do we know that?
They eat
How
caviar.
do we know that we don't have to ask them? We have, excuse
I
me,
don't- I wanna
excuse me,
say-
Mr. Martin,
Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, may I please speak?
go ahead, Mr. Martin.
The answer is we have a myriad of requirements. This isn't like somebody gave us a pot and said, here, let's dole money out. We have a significant sum of money, and we have significant accounting responsibilities. We have significant audit responsibilities. We have to be able to respond If questions are asked of us by the provider of these funds, I agree, it's a pain in the neck to suggest that we may have to involve the consultant, but that's what they're there for, is to give us some advice. Maybe there's a range. Maybe the consultant will say at some de minimis rate, you can distribute money without worrying about the requirements. I'm going to guess that that's not the case. But I, as sympathetic as I am to the immediacy of the problem, I don't want to inherit as the county the obligation to repay something because we didn't follow a procedure.
Raz, comment?
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Frost.
I understand what Mr. Martin's saying, but it's kind of a double-edged sword. You want to wait for the consultant's report, but not hold things back. I think Mr. Teppy's amendment uses a fair number for us to do. So I guess my recommendation would be pass the amendment, move this thing forward, and we can still amend it later if the consultant comes back with something drastically different than the $20,000 threshold.
Mr. Chairman,
Well, I
Leonard.
think the idea was we didn't want to amend it later on. We wanted this body to deliberate upon it before it goes to executive. Mr. Leonard?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Teppy's amendment, because at that point, if it is 1,500 as the administrative fee, that's 7.5%. Still higher than what I'd like, but I think it's a reasonable amount. So I'm in favor of the 20,000. And even though, Mr. Chairman, I know you want to make this resolution set in stone, this resolution can always be amended if we as a committee come back and go, hey, hold it, 20,000 isn't a good figure, but at least it'll get the ball rolling. So I'm in favor of the amendment.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Bates.
I think 20,000 sounds like a pretty good number. And so I think I'll go along with that.
And I'll withdraw my objections.
If it doesn't work out, it's forever known as the Teppy
That's
amendment.
right.
The Teppy debacle.
Teppy fries.
No, just Teppy.
Just Teppy. Yeah, I would just as.
However, I would like to point out, this is Teppy, I would like to point out again that once again, Leonard agreed with me.
Just something
Bates.
for
I
a
did
little
too.
extra context.
I did too. Bates too.
For you guys to consider before you vote. Last year with CARES Act, we did small business grants and our first round was up to 20,000 and I don't believe we set a minimum. So just as a comparison. Any other comments on this amendment? Okay, hearing and seeing none.
Mr. Chair, I do have
Mr.
one
Brown, go ahead.
comment, maybe a question. If we're going to approve this as being amended, is the goal then still to have Peter or Vince talk to Ernst & Young and get their recommendation? Because again, every time you talk to the consultant, they're going to send you a bill.
Well, it's really what this committee wants to do if we're going to decide what the minimum is and
I mean,
get
if we're already,
recommendations from Ernst & Young.
That would be my
if
goal.
we're
I mean,
setting their recommendation at $20,000 through this amendment, and we're going to spend $2,000 talking to Ernst & Young, I don't know, we just kind of be spinning our wheels here with this. I have no problem with the $20,000, I guess, but I guess my concern is we don't really have, you're asking, if we talk to the consultant, we're asking the consultant to advise us as to what would be the cheapest way to pay the consultant. So are we really going to be getting a good answer from the consultant that is going to be advising us how not to use his time? And we're going to be using his time for the next 5 years through all this reporting. So whether it's a $20,000 grant or a $200,000 grant, there's a lot of reporting that has to be done for the next 5 years.
Mr. Chairman, Leonard with the comment.
Mr. Leonard.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Brown. However, part of Ernst & Young's responsibility is to oversee our actions and to let us know if they are in compliance or not. And if in fact 20,000 is an amount they say, no, you can't do that or shouldn't do that, we can revisit it. But at least at this point, with 20,000 as a base, it is their responsibility to review our actions and give us information on whether or not we're complying with the requirements. And if we don't hear anything, then I think we have to assume that they they are not objecting to it, or we could just ask a simple question, and hopefully that wouldn't cost 2,000, but at least they have a responsibility, I think, to oversee our actions.
Okay, so to follow up on that, then, Mr. Chair, if I could, I would agree with Mr. Leonard, and then that would also then give direction to Vince or Peter and or both of them to follow up with Ernst and Young on their comment.
Mr. Chairman,
Evaluation.
may I, this is John Martin, may I?
Mr. Martin.
Having been a paid consultant in my life, you need to be very careful that you don't run away from paying fees. You need to be judicious in how you approach it. And if Ernst and Young came to us with a recommendation of not only being competent, but being professional in what they do, my reasonable expectation is that part of the consultation ought to be, when do you need us and when not? This isn't like we, hired Joe Dokes on a raft going down the river to give us advice. So I agree. I don't want to fritter away money, but if we are constantly focused on fees, we may be spending a lot of time being focused on the wrong thing.
And the other side of it is the money that goes out in the community. So that's also a good point. We do have an amendment to the resolution on the floor. Keep in mind, though, we have the potential for an 11/24 meeting. That would still put us before the next executive committee. So that's another angle we could take here. Maybe we don't even vote on it today and we just postpone it to the 24th. Give us time for E and Y to provide us with their recommendation, and then we discuss that in open session on the 24th and then vote it forward. It's up to you guys, but that's just something to think about, because I know a lot of us do want the recommendation from the consultant. As some of you start to read the documents that were handed out today, the interim final rule, you'll realize the heavy duty requirements that we have for reporting and doing everything as well as we can. So
This is Fraz. My preference is to call a question
There you
and
go.
move it forward with a number on
Call the
it,
question.
and we can change it if needed.
okay, clerk call
Point
the
of
roll.
information,
Ms. Molina.
You got to vote.
if we vote on this today, we can't bring it back because it moves to executive. So just again, caution, we've had experiences when we move things to executive and executive says, you didn't do your due diligence, we're going to move it back to committee. So I'm going to be voting no on this. I think we need to get Ernst & Young's approval first, review that 500-page binder that we've been provided. Thank you.
Yes, that's true. If we vote on it today, well, this is just the amendment, but if we vote on the actual resolution to forward it, then this body wouldn't have a chance to discuss it after we get the recommendations from Ernst & Young before executive, unless we were to just have that conversation on the 24th and then some amendment is proposed at executive.
Mr. Chairman, Leonard, two things. I think number one, we need to have the meeting on the 24th now. And number two, we should find out from Ernst & Young their recommendation and the cost for that recommendation. So going forward, we have some idea of what to expect.
If you recognize, call the question, we just vote
Yes.
and we don't
Yes.
debate.
No
Clerk call the roll.
discussion, right?
On the amendment for $20,000 minimum.
Bates,
No,
Brown,
It's a debatable question.
that's why we've been debating.
So this is just on the amendment. This isn't on the resolution yet.
Right.
This is the amendment to establish a $20,000 minimum for applicants.
And not ask E and Y for their advice.
No, it's not. It's just on the amendment.
But that's what the amendment is. If the amendment, may I speak?
If
No.
no, if the amendment
No, I have to
passes,
call the
then
question.
it's included in the resolution.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Mr.
Roz?
Brown, is it?
Yes.
Gums,
Comes no.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
thank you. Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
No.
Molina,
Molina, no.
Strathman,
Strathman, no.
Teppy,
Teppy, yes.
And Sanchez?
No. Okay, so we have the main resolution on the floor. And to the point of establishing a minimum, I'm going to direct Peter to reach out to Ernst & Young, get us an answer as soon as possible.
Sorry,
And
what was
it
the
does
vote count?
The motion failed.
It failed.
6-5.
5-6. 5 ayes, 6 nays. I could repeat it, the votes that I recorded.
I believe your count.
Recount?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Teppy.
again, in this resolution, the 6 organizations are not named. Can we know who they are?
I don't have the list off the top of my head. I probably should, but I don't want to say them and then get something wrong. So that will be included again as a Scrivener's error.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Martin.
inasmuch as the only real discussion is I interpret this conversation, everybody is of the consensus is that in fact, we need a minimum. And the no votes would indicate that the majority felt that we needed to have the advice of our consultant before we did it. Everybody agrees that Vern's typographical error should be corrected. Would it be appropriate at this time then to just simply take this off the agenda and vote on the 24th? Because we don't have anything to, the one issue that we all want resolved is not available to us today to resolve.
I'm comfortable with such action. Is there any objection from the committee on
I'm okay with that.
postponing the vote on this resolution until the 24th?
Till the next meeting. We
Yeah.
move to table until
24th.
the 24th.
Move to the next meeting.
Till the 24th.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Leonard seconds.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Martin moves to table until the 24th. Leonard seconds. It also looks like we're having a meeting on the 24th. Put that on your calendar.
Oh, you got it.
I was about to say all those in favor. We can't do that. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Froz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Teppy,
Teppy abstains.
abstain, and Sanchez.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you all. I think that was the best action to take, given the concerns that were raised today that we need to get straightened out.
Mr. Chairman, question, Strathman?
Ms. Strathman,
Do we have a time for the meeting on the 24th?
it will be following finance, so it would
10:30?
be 10:30,
Thank you.
and we'll get that put up right away.
Thank you.
Okay, if I could have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially pass a resolution authorizing administrative assistant temp hire for the American Rescue Plan Committee, continued term and budget adjustment.
Froz moves.
Molina moves.
Melina moves, Froz seconds. Any questions, comments about this? It's extending the contract for Jenny, our wonderful assistant, who's been doing a great job for us. And finance just needed a little time to work some of the numbers out. Got it squared away. This is for another 90-day term. Any questions or comments before we vote? Okay, hearing and seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Froz,
Yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Teppy,
Teppy, yes.
and Sanchez.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Old business, I'm not aware of any. Is there anything that committee members would like to bring up in open session at this time that has not been discussed yet? Okay, we will move on then. No need for executive session. Mr. Kenyon motions to adjourn. I need a second.
Motion to adjourn.
By unanimous consent.
Froz seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.